What up, world? You already know what time it is. It's your boy Mac. This is the host with the most. Never need to brag no boast. All I ever did was give a toast to the little folks who done paid the way in a real way. Who has players to play. Now, the censorship at an all-time high. Y'all let me know, man. This is what I eat in the morning, you know? Grapefruit. I did a review on a song the other day, Quavo's Greatness. Shout out to Quavo for that song. It was a nice little song. Long live Takeoff, you know. But y'all let me know, man. Do y'all think censorship is at an all-time high? I feel like they're trying to shadow ban certain YouTubers, you know? Like, where would YouTube be without? We say, fam, salute, salute. Where would YouTube be without its content creators that we have out here, man? Especially the black ones, you know? You're out here giving y'all good content. I feel like it's being shadow banned for some reason or some sort, you know what I'm saying? And I want to know the reason behind it all, you know? So no, I'm watching Canadian news, and they talk about the liberals have a censorship bill. So I'm trying to figure out what's the censorship bill about. They're trying to stop content creators in Canada.
Here's David Richards.
I'm speaking on the truth.
Here's David Richards, a Trudeau-appointed senator denouncing a Trudeau government bill.
So anything the government wants to push, may be to your detriment or not. You can't really speak on it because remember the whole thing with the COVID-19, and they're really saying that black folks, we were the like poster boys of COVID. You know what I'm saying? Because we were heavier, that we were more prone to get it, prone to get sick and all that. They're killing us off way more. But that wasn't even the case, you know. And a few months prior to that, there was some old time disease going around in the Caucasoid community where they were just dropping like flies, man. You know what I'm saying? Some old time disease came back from like the scurvy days and something like that. And then right after that, COVID-19 hit, and we were the poster child for that. I'm like, God, how can that be? You know what I'm saying? Why is that? Now check this out. Listen to this right quick.
As censorship passing as national inclusion.
We fill the world with our talent, but not because of the Minister of Heritage. We expand books and movies across the world, but it's not because of some formula. We have insulted so many of our authors and singers, our actors and painters, by not paying attention to them and then claiming them when they go somewhere else.
He's talking about Bill C-11, which would impose Canadian content strictures across basically the whole Canadian internet. Are you a Canadian who makes their living on YouTube or Instagram? Get ready to file a whole bunch of paperwork to Ottawa to prove that you meet their threshold for Canadian content. Is your co-host an Australian and your producer a Swede? Too bad, because C11 would also require streaming services to hide your obviously non-Canadian video, take her something that is.
So you can't even connect with other people from other countries without them feeling away. Like, you know what I'm saying? It all gotta be censored, approved by them. Well, let's check out this brother right here, cause you gotta.
Hey everyone, it's Brandon from the Brandon
I
Gomez
hope y'all
Show.
could hear this.
I'm working with YouTube to share an update on some new legislation in the works in Canada. It's called the Online Streaming Act, or Bill C-11. Here are the impacts that C-11 could have on creators and users in Canada. It can determine how content appears on YouTube, including the homepage and Watch Next section. Plus, a regulator could force artificial promotion of some creators and content over others, which could impact how content reaches global audiences and could hurt views and revenue. Now, if this bill passes, it could have a huge impact on recommendations on YouTube, which means potentially a big change for Canadian viewers and creators like you and me. Now, to break down what this means, let's bring in Todd Beaupre, Director of Product at YouTube, whose team helps manage what videos come your way on your home feed. Todd, let's talk about recommendations as they work now on YouTube. What are the basics we need to know?
Hey, Brandon, great to be chatting with you. So recommendations.
Salute to the Plug Podcast.
YouTube viewers.
Always checking in on brother, you know what I'm saying? Always supporting the channel.
Videos.
Y'all already.
This is what viewers are interested in. You want to help them discover creators and channels that are going to be really interesting to them. It's kind of like if you go to the library and have a librarian help you find the next book that you might enjoy reading based on other books that you've read.
So let's talk about how exactly this bill might play out on YouTube. Basically, a regulator could make YouTube show a certain amount of Canadian videos to Canadians. So does that mean you have to change the recommendation system?
So first, let me tell you a little bit about how the recommendation system works.
You already know, fam.
So we collect a lot of feedback from viewers in the form of looking at what they watch, what they don't watch, how long they watch it, whether they like or dislike. We aim to recommend the best videos to each viewer based on their personal interests. And so as part of that, we aim to recommend Canadian creators to both Canadian viewers as well as viewers around the world who are interested in that sort of content or content similar to it, regardless of whether the video was uploaded in Canada or somewhere around the world. And by doing this, we're able to maximize the audience for Canadian creators.
Okay, so if Canadians get artificially served up Canadian content, what happens to the systems?
So what would happen is we'd end up mismatching viewers to videos that they would be most interested in the space of Canadian content creators. We would be showing their videos to people who would be less interested than other videos. And what that ends up meaning is the reaction from those viewers is likely to be that they're less likely to click on those videos. If they do click on the videos, they would be less likely to like them, or maybe they would dislike them or watch them a lot less. And so that negative feedback that we collect can actually have a ripple through the system, because it basically teaches the system that this content from Canadian creators isn't as engaging and satisfying as other content that is not getting kind of pushed too much in the system. And so that could actually backfire by reducing how much that Canadian content gets recommended to other viewers. But in fact, today, over 90% of the views on Canadian creator content come from viewers outside of Canada.
Can you explain a little bit more why that feedback loop is so important? Why would these negative signals hurt creators?
We protect this feedback loop very much. As an example, we keep our advertising systems separate from our recommendation systems. So if a creator were to buy advertising for a video, for example, we don't allow that activity to influence a viewer's recommendations, because we don't want that organic feedback loop from the audience to be tampered with, ultimately hurting Canadian creators and reducing their opportunity both in viewership and revenue.
And what about the viewer? Is it helpful to get served up Canadian recommendations?
When we would introduce, sort of artificial recommendations, it would hurt the viewers, because then we would be promoting recommendations that they wouldn't be interested in watching. They may end up deciding that they're not as interested in using the platform at all because they're not getting as relevant results. And so we really don't want to be recommending things to viewers that they're not interested in watching, because then they'll potentially leave, and that reduces the opportunity for everyone.
Thanks so much, Ty. So if you're a creator or a YouTube user watching and want to know more or add your voice to the conversation, click below on the description for details on how to get involved. Thanks. Take care.
I don't know about all that, man. I, you know, I was trying to do a video response video the other day, and it said some dude in Russia owned the video. I'm like, God damn, some dude in Russia owned the.
Hello, friends. This is a special video with an important message for any Canadian.
So now let's hear from content creators, man, because I feel like it's kind of a
Hello,
censorship to
friends.
us.
This is a special video with an important message for any Canadian who cares about preserving a free and independent YouTube. Prime Minister Trudeau's administration is planning to pass a piece of legislation known as Bill C-10 that will allow the Canadian government to impose strict new regulations over YouTube and other popular streaming websites like Netflix and Disney Plus. If passed, Bill C-10 likely means that Canadians who watch YouTube, like you, or make content for YouTube, like me, will soon experience a very different version of the site compared to the one used by non-Canadians. This could affect things like what videos show up in our subscription feed or Explore tab, which videos succeed or fail, and which creators or channels get special privileges over others. You see, under present Canadian law, the Canadian federal government, acting through a media regulatory agency known as the CRTC, has the power to meddle with traditional media in Canada in all sorts of ways. The CRTC tells radio stations what sort of songs they have to play, when certain shows on television have to be aired, and even what cable channels you have to buy. CRTC rules are supposed to push audiences towards good, patriotic Canadian content and away from bad foreign content or even Canadian content that's not quite Canadian enough. The government's rules for what is or isn't sufficiently Canadian are famously obtuse and rely on a preposterous point system that can be gamed in all sorts of ways. A movie set in Canada starring Canadian actors like Scott Pilgrim versus the World, for instance, was not considered sufficiently Canadian by the government, but a documentary about the murder of Gandhi was. Anyway, Bill C-10 would put YouTube under this system because apparently the government worries that Canadians are not watching enough good, patriotic Canadian content on this site. We don't know exactly what kind of rules they would impose specifically, because the way laws generally work in Canada these days is that the Parliament just passes some broad, open-ended bill, giving an executive agency like the CRTC sweeping new powers, and then that agency just hammers in a bunch of new regulations after the law starts. But based on the precedent from the way the government regulates TV and radio, what is probably most likely is that if this bill passes, YouTube will be legally forced to rig Canadians' home, explore, and subscription feeds in a way that will push good, patriotic Canadian YouTube creators and videos to the top, while burying foreigners or bad Canadians. On the creator side, I can also see YouTube requiring creators to click a bunch of yes or no questions every time they upload something in order to determine if their content is Canadian enough to be privileged by this new pro-patriotism algorithm. It would be sort of like the boxes you currently have to check to tell YouTube if your content contains any swears or violence or whatever. Lord only knows what sorts of questions you have to answer to determine how Canadian your content is. I could also imagine Canadians being forced to automatically subscribe to a few mandatory Canadian channels that they could never unsubscribe from, like say the CBC. You might think I'm scaremongering, but like I said, this is already the sort of nonsense the Canadian government imposes on conventional media. And since Bill C-10 is so vague and grants such sweeping authority to the CRTC, I think it is appropriate to err on the side of maximum suspicion. I'm speaking out against this legislation, even though I think it is actually entirely possible I will benefit from it. I'm a Canadian who makes a lot of videos about Canadian-related topics, so my stuff would presumably get boosted by a new pro-Canadian algorithm, assuming the criteria of what counts as good Canadian content isn't too arbitrary. But here's the thing.
That's what I'm saying. It's too arbitrary, man. Just let it be free, man. Free enterprise, man.
decide which creators are more deserving of success than others. One of the things I most love about YouTube is the degree it allows us to freely explore the world outside our own borders and be exposed to culture and content from all over the place. And I don't want some government committee in Ottawa trying to restrict that freedom in order to push their own narrow conception of what Canadians should be watching. So please, if you are Canadian, do what you can to make your voice heard and oppose Bill C-10. Make a fuss on social media, send messages of outrage to the Prime Minister and Heritage Minister. Do whatever it takes to let everyone know that you want the government to keep its hands off your YouTube experience.
Yeah, man. So that goes to show you right there, man. They're trying to censor you. They're trying to put you in a bubble. You know, whenever the government tries to impose its will on y'all, it's not for nothing good. You know what I'm saying? Talk about they're pushing more Canadian content. We don't need y'all to push more Canadian content. If the content's good, people are gonna watch it. You know what I'm saying? So what y'all trying to do is basically, you know, y'all trying to compartmentalize the whole thing, you know, and it causes like friction because what can we deem as Canadian and not Canadian? You know what I'm saying? A lot of black content creators are out here trying to do their best to branch out. You know what I'm saying? And reach out to other constituencies. You know, to other places to get the actual culture to get good feedback. So if we're just pushing Canadian content, what is Canadian content? You know what I'm saying? Because the majority of Canadians are people from all over the place. If you really look at it, man, there's a lot of immigrants from Canada, you know what I'm saying? So you can't really say, oh, it's Canadian, you know what I'm saying? What's Canadian content? That doesn't really make any sense to me. You know? Like American content, Asian content, like, yo, content is content, you know? But basically they're trying to they're trying to do like with TikTok, you got Asian TikTok and you got American TikTok, what are they pushing towards American TikTok? Bullshit. The Asian TikTok, they're getting all the good information. So let me give you one more video on it. I hear from Jordan Peterson, even though
What are your thoughts for the future?
he's a little controversial.
Build the most magical place in the world.
I went through this new bill, C-11, because I'm one of the people whom it will hypothetically affect, although I have a number of maneuvers up my sleeve, so to speak, to bypass that entirely. And I know Canadians don't understand this, but let's say that the new media, which is the internet itself, was capable of producing some of the opposition to the globalists and Trudeau that the legacy media have abandoned. And I'm thinking of people like, say, Russell Brand, who's on the left, and not to mention, any of the conservative commentators in the United States. But now what the Bill C-11 has done is basically, and this is unbelievable, I can't believe I read it correctly, they basically defined all internet content of any sort as subject to the same CRTC, Canadian Radio and Television Corporation? I don't remember the last word.
It doesn't really matter.
No, it doesn't matter. They defined them as broadcasters that are equivalent, let's say, to CBC or CTV. Now, the reason that those broadcasters are different was because the government had to parse up the airwaves, because the airwaves were actually a scarce resource. Now, and the internet is not a scarce resource. And now, as far as I can tell, reading Bill C-11, which is an unbelievably vague document, if a internet service provider, a private one, so a small business person like me, let's say, doesn't broadcast in French and English and in indigenous languages and to any diverse range of people with disabilities and highlight Canadian content, then the government can do what it needs to do to sanitize their distribution. And they'll do that by putting pressure on the search engine providers like YouTube and Google, or just stopping them altogether. And I read this bill, and all of it, again, Rex, too, the bill is couched in all this diversity, inclusivity, and equity terminology, which it's the same solution to every problem, right? And so not only do we have this massive press collusion with the government that's absolutely unconscionable in a Western democracy, but we also have now the government clamping down more viciously than in any other developed country on the freedom for Canadians to get access to all of the information on the internet, not just that produced by Canadians.
I'm inclined to believe that this idea that these intellectuals
Look at this baby.
maybe a
You
shallow
don't want to
cap,
listen.
I don't know how
I don't want to listen. I don't want to listen. I don't want to listen.
have been given Vatican-like infallibility to judge what is correct and is not,
No poem?
to make decisions that will hold back. By the way, the whole
It's
idea
called
of
a phone.
disinformation and misinformation coming out of the mouths of this guy. I mean, they are the greatest purveyor of confusion and evasion. The idea that they then are going to be the kind of grandmas or Mrs. Grundy, as it used to be called in the 19th century, and protect the tender sensibilities of minds that are better than their own. Yeah, I'm tired of people, and I'm sure you are too, because it's getting so cliched to bringing up George Orwell, but because he put the stamp on it, he gave the template. The idea that a central authority runs thought and speech and makes judgment on what is and what's not. And under the banner of diversity, inclusion, and equity, which is really a hidden ideology, pumped up by vast self-righteousness and granting pseudo-infallibility to those who are sensitive. We know this is not the case. Mr. Trudeau got rid of his only Aboriginal female minister. There's equity, there's diversity. They confuse, this is a big point too, they confuse either at Davos, which you reference, or at any other high meeting, with saying that you are virtuous is the same thing as being. And there's a hidden, not a hidden, there's a blatant arrogance attached to any government that thinks that in the modern communication system, that it should have any business outside of the exact things that are defined by law as incitement and random. They will call hate something they simply don't like. It's not an easy emotion to define. C11, Michael Geist, I know you follow. Michael Geist is the professor of communication, who most articulately and most deep is warning over and over to give this bunch that can't issue a passport, that have a pay system for their own civil servants that's 3 or 4 years misfunction, that passengers walk over Pearson Airport within less than 2 hours. Should somebody have the government of the thoughts and reactions and speeches and positions and films and talks like this, like yours? It's absurd, but it's more than that. This is truly frightening. I mean, what is the gulping for more power than you need? Well, it's the imposition of an ideology. And go back to your China point. Here's the reason that he may really admire China, because China, it happens to be communism. China is fired only, as was Russia, by an ideology, by a set of narrow ideas from which no deviation, no criticism, under penalty of exile or death is allowed. Not as hard over here, but DIE is an ideology. Ideology makes those claims and fills those holes with a completely unacceptable level of moral servitude. That's certain. Bill C-11 is a disaster and no.
Yeah, man, they're trying to block free speech, yo. How do we know what's deemed Canadian or what's not? Just because the geographical location?
is shameful to the essence that the main Canadian press are not as one voice and a one intense voice saying, we're not having this. We are simply not having this.
Big up, big
You are
up.
not going to rule on what is information and not information. You are not going to rule on the presence of citizens on the new channels of communication. And seeing you've already plowed the official legacy to some serious degree, we're certainly not going to allow you to put a pillow over the mouth of the only possible new exchanges that we have. It's a terrible idea, and I need, apart from arrogance, righteousness, and the belief in his own infallibility, I can't see why. But why aren't the MPs even in his own party saying, Justin, you're dreaming, you're out of touch. We don't want to go there. We're not following you on this. Where's the courage in any of these policies?
A hand wave about diversity, inclusivity, equity, the environment, and then in Bill C-11 they added the protection of the Canadian culture to that, and which sounds like something taken out of like 1979 or 1980. It's such an outdated idea. And one of the other terrifying things about Bill C-11 is that we won't, in Canada, if this is actually enforced, with the collusion, let's say, of Google and YouTube and so forth, and forced collusion in some sense, because those companies are not going to break the law. Canadians won't even know what information is being hidden from them, because the laws will take the form of invisible algorithms that merely deprioritize at the listing of content that doesn't meet the impossible criteria that have been laid down. And Bill C-11 is basically written in a way that allows the government to interfere with the promulgation of any information that they deem unacceptable for any reason. Because there are so many restrictions on what you're allowed to do now that there's no possible way that any member of the alternative media can meet the criteria. It's just not possible. And it won't just be YouTube broadcasters and podcasters. It's going to be people who provide all sorts of services online, because the bill is written in such a vast manner that the provision of any services on the internet, and we're talking about the internet here, right, which is something people really depend on, that will all fall under the invisible auspices of a tiny coterie of ideologically addled bureaucrats and algorithms.
So in other words, they're just trying to take your shit away from you. You know what I'm saying? It's a bunch of bullshit, you know. Instead of worried about what we're posting online, if we're not being deemed have malicious content or anything like that, it's freedom of speech. You know what I mean? But Canada goes by the old British system, which is the loyalist system, you know, which is they go by the crown, the monarchy, which is anything the monarchy says. The monarchy is basically white supremacy in a nutshell. That they can basically just stop you from saying what you want to say in a proper manner, you know, which is creating more misinformation, man. By the time she gets older, she's gonna not really know what's out there, you know. It's what Canadians are pushing, what the government's pushing out there, you know, and which is sad, because you know Justin Trudeau has a whole $1 billion fraud case that he's that people are talking about, where him stealing from well, you know, I shouldn't say stealing, but basically there's a fraud case of over $1 billion with non-profits with Justin Trudeau's name on it. So let's talk about that instead of trying to stop content creators and YouTubers from really branching out, reaching out, and getting content from around the world that's actually helping them and not hindering them. You know what I'm saying? And way because we're broadening our horizons and we're seeing more stuff, and then we could actually give y'all the best of what we have out here, you know. So let's think about that before we start censoring and doing all this shit, you know. Because at the end of the day, Canada is Canada's not a monolith, you know. Canada is made up of a lot of different ethnicities. You know what I mean? Especially in Montreal, where I'm from, there's 110 different ethnicities here. You know, 110, the most in the world. It's a melting pot. So why should we let them stop us from building up and doing what we got to do in the context of content creators and YouTubers, you know, bloggers or whatnot, give you the right information from our perspective. Because look, in Montreal, you want you to have everything in French, basically. You know what I'm saying? But when the American companies come, they don't want to mess up the market, so they let them put their stuff in English. You know, so when it comes to our businesses, we have to make sure everything is, you know, French. Everything is thing that ultimately alienates our English customers. You know, but it doesn't really matter to them because they deem Canada or Quebec a French province, which it is to a certain extent, but it's all native land at the end of the day, you know. Quebec is within Canada's borders, and they're always acting like they're a sovereign state. That's different from Canada, which is not the case because we use Canadian currency. Like imagine France using England's currency and then telling England, "Hey, man, y'all can't tell us nothing," you know. And whoever comes over here, yeah, we're still gonna use your money and all that. We run the show out here. Well, that doesn't really fly right because there's national laws and there's provincial laws. And you gotta abide by the national laws, you know. But if the national laws are not to help the cause, give you less freedoms. Canada's supposed to be a way more free country than the United States, or so they say, because they say we're peacekeepers. That's bullshit. There ain't no peacekeepers. All we are is lapdogs for the British Empire, you know. And that's gotta stop. We gotta be a sovereign nation. We gotta bring back free speech. You know what I'm saying? We gotta bring back freedom of expression. And we gotta bring back truth and righteousness. You know what I'm saying? Cause out here, they ain't gonna stop until they got everybody thinking the same on the same wavelength with the same bullshit barometer of success, which is not really adding up to any proper change, you know, and proper understanding of what's going on in the world. You know, from the Hotel Rwanda, the whole thing with the Tutsis and the Tutsis. People think that on that Canadian what was his name again? I can't remember his name right now. But that Canadian, what's wrong? Okay, I'm on the phone though. I'm talking. You want to speak? Say something. Say something. No? Okay. So let daddy speak, okay? Yeah, so when it comes to the Hutus and the Tutsis, yeah, we had a French Canadian United Nations worker that was deemed as a hero in the whole thing, but come to find out, the United Nations were propagating the deception on both sides, and actually let the president that caused the whole thing escape to Switzerland. You know what I'm saying? While the United Nations were there and watching people damn near kill each other. It was a crisis. A European crisis. We wanted to know what was going on. International crisis, my bad. And they basically shunned us and told us, "Oh, this guy was out there helping people, but they're actually out there, you know, doing all types of atrocities to those African people, because they realized I killed two birds with one stone, man. Why should we really intervene?" Which is not the case. That's not the case, or that's not the role of a United Nations. The United Nations is supposed to confront these atrocities throughout the world, and stop it before it reaches epidemic proportions, which is really what happened out there. Rwandan epidemic. 800,000 Hutus and Tutsis died in that war. Or what? Nose bridges. So there's a lot of stuff out there that they don't want you to know, especially with China and anything like that. You know what I'm saying? All this type of censorship. Them not explaining that the Wuhan virus actually was basically taken from China to a lab in Winnipeg, and something happened regarding that. There's a lab in Winnipeg that they're experimenting with different viruses on and everything like that. So you gotta, there's a lot of news out there that they don't want you to use. So we gotta be mindful and steadfast in our thinking and the way we express ourselves. Just know that big government doesn't want you to have freedom of speech, and that's sad in a democracy. As Jordan Peterson said, we're living in democracy, not a hypocrisy.
Gillette Labs with exfoliating bar.
So,
Support for Justin Trudeau.
and I met Justin Trudeau one time. He's kind of a
What did you expect the
shifty dude,
faced with that promise? Michael Geist is a law professor who specializes in technology issues. He has been a sharp critic of the Trudeau government's Online News Act, Bill C-18. He's testified that it could set a bad precedent and inhibit.
Yeah, so when the next big thing happens, before we can get out there and speak about it candidly, they're gonna block all that. I make it seem like we ain't tell y'all, you know what I'm saying? There's no information about what the government's gonna give you out.
Check it. Do you expect the tech companies to do when faced with that proposition? Michael Geist is a law professor who specializes in technology issues. He has been a sharp critic of the Trudeau government's Online News Act, Bill C-18. He's testified that it could set a bad precedent and inhibit free speech. And it mandates payments for links, which I think has creates real concerns for freedom of expression online. We depend upon free flow of information on the internet. Links is central to that. The bill would force the world's biggest media and tech companies like Google and Facebook owner Meta to pay Canadian news organizations for every link back to a news site. The Parliamentary Budget Officer estimates that could transfer nearly $330 million a year from the tech companies to Canadian news organizations.
and about 3/4 of that will in fact go to broadcasters. So the broadcasters tend to be Bell, Rogers, and CBC, and of course Chorus with Global. Most of those companies are pretty large companies with an awful lot of money. So people are already saying, some people are saying, well, do they need to be subsidized?
Google doesn't think so. And so, as a warning, it says it is engaging in a 5-week-long test in which 4% of its Canadian users will see access to Canadian news sites limited, although it did not provide details about how those users are chosen or which news sites are affected. The government says it will not be dissuaded.
We just want Facebook and Google to pay their fair share to journalists when they use their work. And I think that's a reasonable thing to ask. And they've been fighting against regulation. We think we're on the right side of this.
For Google, this is not just about its Canadian operations. It is worried about copycat legislation in other countries, and that would affect Google's global bottom line. David Aiken, Global News, Ottawa. What did you expect?
So that's what it is in Canada. It's five corporations. I have a conglomerate over there. So the best thing for y'all to do, man, is to become your own news stations. You know what I'm saying? And get your content out there, man. Because gone are the days where you just have to have a good story and you're trying to bring good information. Now you gotta pay to give out good information. If not, they're gonna censor you even more.
Support for Justin Trudeau's.
So think about that. When you think about censorship, I know you want power. I know.
Are you a Canadian content creator?
How white do you think your teeth really are? Let's try the tissue test. Oof, still yellow. There's toothpaste white and there's crazy white strip.
And I don't like the fact that there's all these ads all the time. Like, goddamn. I don't put your ads on TV no more. You gotta bring it online.
Decent money? Well, not anymore, you're not. Time to sell your Pokemon cards, you loser, because the government is trying to... I got an email this week which made no sense to me.
You got mail.
I didn't have time to read it because who has time to read? I bought the entire Dune series after watching the Dune movie. I haven't even cracked open the first book. But I was watching Spears' video today and he said,
So, for those of you who don't know, recently there has been a bill out in Canadian Parliament called Bill C-11, and what this bill does is it allows the Canadian government to regulate content creators on platforms like YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, really any platform that you guys are posting online digital content. This will dictate how and where your content will appear on these platforms, and it will also change how your content is discovered.
I'm sorry, what?
Chances are your content is going to be pushed down in the algorithm, and in order for people to see your videos now, you're going to have to make content that proves that you are Canadian enough.
Prove I'm Canadian? How am I supposed to? Am I supposed to just have a flag flying behind me at all times to show how patriotic I am? So the email that I got earlier, I read it, and it seems like Spears is right. What creators need to know about Canada's proposed online streaming act, Bill C-11? Oh, I don't know the song. They're writing to you about the online streaming act, Bill C-11 in Canada, which is a critical point in the legislative process.
Okay, Daddy's doing something, okay? Alright, you have to be careful.
But seriously, pay attention to what I'm saying. Passed in its current form, the bill will grant the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, a government regulator, the authority to regulate your content on YouTube and other platforms like it does for television and radio. So essentially, the CRTC is angry that people are making money online and no one is watching traditional media anymore. is dead. Who listens to the radio other than like driving to work? Who sits there and watches the news? DD mega doo-doo. So traditional media isn't getting paid as much as they used to. They want to get compensated, and content creators that are Canadian are suffering because of it.
We're seeking to address this market imbalance. We want to make sure that news outlets and journalists receive fair compensation for their work. We want to make sure that local independent news thrives.
Ooh, looks like people are happy. 1.4 thousand dislikes and only 89 likes. It's about her boomerang. That's what I'm calling it. Let me put this in perspective. Let me name a couple Canadian content creators. I'm gonna go down a little list that I have right here. We have Cody Code, Curtis Conner, Pokey, XQC, Shroud, Ryan Reynolds.
All right.
Ryan Reynolds is not a content creator. He is. He's got a YouTube channel. Dilly Singh, Vanos Gaming, This Guy's Toast, Some Ordinary Gamers, Jack's Films, not Jack's Films. He seems Canadian. He just seems like a happy Canadian kind of guy. And to name a few TikTokers that you might not know are Canadian, Chris, you know Chris? I love her videos, they're hilarious. We got that ethnically ambiguous guy with the fro who always looks like he's high. Those people on that list, they're popular. They've gotten so popular that they've moved to the US, so this doesn't really affect them. But I'm still here, so it's going to be affecting me. The government has said that it doesn't intend for this bill to target content made by YouTube creators. However, the chair of the CRTC confirmed that the legislation gives the CRTC the power to regulate your content. We believe this puts both Canadian creators and viewers at risk. Okay, they're being pretty vague here. What does it mean by at risk? How Bill C-11 could affect creators and YouTube. Oh, here we go. Now look at the wording here. Put some dramatic music over this. The CRTC could dictate how and where your content appears on the platform, including the YouTube homepage and watch next. It could require some creators to be promoted over others. This may push viewers to watch your content when they aren't interested, potentially hurting your discoverability globally due to negative viewer feedback. And it could regulate the length and type of advertising on your channel, limiting your ability to earn ad revenue. Now this is upsetting because it's gonna hurt my ad revenue and my discoverability in places other than Canada. If you look at my analytics, most of my viewers are Canadian. My top geographies are United States, Philippines, India, United Kingdom, and then Canada with 4.3%. So my Canadian viewers are low enough as it is, and now they want to lessen the amount of viewers that I have globally as well. That's nice. According to the government, the increased visibility for some officially recognized Canadian content creators, but their tool for doing this is manipulating our playlist feeds and algorithm recommendations. This means that the CRTC will be picking winners and losers, forcing some officially recognized content up in the feeds. So if you're on YouTube now in Canada, what are you going to see? Just what is a Canadian YouTube channel? ASAP Science or CBC News? What's going to be on my homepage? Is this going to be Degrassi, the next generation clips? So a Canadian YouTuber and Washington Post journalist, JJ McCullough? Shoot.
JJ McCullough.
McCullough. So he went to an Ottawa House of Commons committee on Canadian heritage on June 1st, 2022. To oppose this bill.
Hello, friends. My name is JJ McCullough, and I'm a professional YouTuber from New Westminster, BC. Today, I hope to teach the committee about Canada's vast YouTuber community and why so many of us fear Bill C-11, a bill we did not ask for, do not need, and threatens the success we've already achieved.
He says learning about countries, cultures, and Canada. Oh, he has Canada in his thumbnail here. Maybe I should write Canada on my banner so people know that I'm Canadian.
McCullough
also wrote this article here. Trudeau's government is still trying to wreck Canadian YouTube. And recently he tweeted, "A lot of Canadians have been asking me what they can do to help oppose C-11. I honestly think the best thing we can do is ask other Canadian YouTubers to speak out against it. No one beyond corporate media special interest supports this bill after hearing about it." I guess that's why I'm making this video today, because this isn't my usual content. What do I care about bills and legislation? I don't. I care about TikTokers. I care about copycats. You know, I just realized no free advertisement. Let's put Belle Delphine there instead. People aren't happy about this bill, and Canadians are saying that they're gonna leave the country if it passes. I don't know who this guy is, Eric, but hey, if you leave Canada, I'll leave with you. Maybe we can can be roommates or something. If Bill C11 passes, I'm leaving Canada. F anyone who tries to censor online content creation. And this email ends with take action to fix C11 and protect creators and users. We have 2 goals: to protect Canadian creators and successful businesses that you've created on YouTube, and to make sure that Canadian viewers can continue to watch what they love on YouTube. Speak out publicly. Speaking out publicly. Thank you guys for watching this video. This is my typical video that I usually like to make, but I might start doing videos like this. I have a channel here called Astra Extra. It was a Pokemon unboxing channel, but I'm running out of Pokemon unboxing content, so I'm gonna make it into just a channel where I chat, I talk, I look at random things, and I'm not worried about the algorithm, and I can talk about whatever I want without worrying about it getting low views or something. But if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below, and I'll be back very soon with a brand new video.
He's right, man. He's right. This bill is stinks to high heaven. You know what makes me a black Canadian content creator? How are you supposed to gauge that? You know what I'm saying? So it's the 5 News Corporation, Rogers, CBC, CTV, and a couple of others that are gonna get the most viewership. You know what I'm saying? Because you know that the old media is going out of style, and the new people are here, man. They just want to speak real. You know, they want to come from a real perspective. You know, they don't want to talk like a journalist or anything like that. They just want to speak from the heart. So people in the government don't like that. Show that we don't have a democracy, but a aristocracy. You know, and that's what's hurting us the most. May as well just call Canada China. So big up to China. You see it, what we're going through, man. You know what I'm saying? More and more censorship, more and more freedom of speech is taken away. And I'm a YouTube content creator, so I feel like it shouldn't be allowed, man, because we actually have a voice out here. Canada, we see things for what it is, and we speak on injustices all the time because that's what we do as Canadians. You can't be a Canadian if you don't practice justice, as well as an American, and as well as a Yugoslavian, as well as a friggin' African. You know, you can't be any of these things if you don't practice justice, and that's real in the field. You know what I'm saying? So it's your boy Mike Mizzo. Before y'all go out, put some fake ass content out there. Ask yourself, what will Mac do? Because all I do is sit back, relax, and kick backs. You dig?